What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and old Mr. Baldwin decided, hey, now would be a great time to cry on command and do some sort of weird interview for ABC News in some attempt to run some level of damage control on the pushback that he's getting and the criticism that he's getting. To all the people defending him, you know, this guy did this interview by choice. He went on TV, he put makeup on his face, and he lied. He lied hilariously to the news agency, to the public, to the parents of Helene. He tried to pull the hilarious, you know how we don't talk about, whoever was driving that SUV. It was an SUV that, a wild SUV that was driven by a spooky ghost that did everything right up the road from me here. Apparently, Alec is claiming that a spooky ghost is the one that actually pulled the trigger. He didn't do that. Never mind, by the way, that the prop that was used is a single action revolver. So you basically have a firing pin on the hammer and no transfer bar safety. There's only two ways that discharges. Either you pulled the trigger, or in some crazy event you had the hammer down and you dropped it and it landed a certain way, landed right on the hammer and had some sort of discharge like that. I'm not saying that he intended to do it, but what I am saying is he's lying. And then they're circling, like, it'd be one thing if, this single action, we know that he had to pull the hammer back too. Did a spooky ghost do that too? It's unbelievable that the media is running this. Unbelievable. He writes, I didn't pull the weepy Alec makes shocking claim. He insists he didn't pull the trigger. In his first interview since October 21st, of course, a tearful Baldwin went on ABC News' George Snuffleupagus. He had no idea how the live ammo ended there. I believe he didn't know. I believe that. I would never point at anyone and pull, never. But he did. He did. This is like an undeniable fact. If you're going to say, we can at least admit you pointed at her, right? Because bullets don't do zigzags, unless they ricochet. This was a perfect line of sight that you had. So again, that's another lie. Authorities had previously said that Alec was holding it while rehearsing a scene when it accidentally discharged. Someone put a live round in it. It wasn't even supposed to be on the property, Alec said in the interview, which is set to air in full on Thursday. What's crazy about this is that this narcissistic maniac, the only reason he's doing this interview is for his own reputation. He's not doing this because he felt like it was a good way to honor Helene. He's not doing this because he actually cares. He's doing this because he's getting ruthlessly criticized in the media. That's why he's doing it. It's not even like up for debate why what his motivating factors are here. And at one point in the hour-long interview, imagine watching this for an hour, Baldwin could be seen sobbing and placing his head in his hands. Asked if the film event was the worst thing that's ever happened to him, he said, yes. Well, is there something worse than ending somebody's existence? He also paid tribute to her and said, it didn't seem real. I think back to what I could have done, he said. She was someone who was loved by everyone who worked with her. What could you have done? Well, I don't know, not pointed at her, cleared the prop. You could have looked at the prop before you used it. There's a lot you could have done, Alec. Again, I don't believe that there was any intent there, unless there was, some information out there that I don't understand or that, that exists that the public doesn't know. I've never been one of those people, who want like the stiffest charges for him. But I do think reckless, ending of someone is a crime. And, maybe he thinks getting out in front of the media and crying on cue, on camera will somehow prevent him from being charged. Now, I do think, and I hope that, the local PD looks at this like it were any other case. I don't, if you don't like cases that are politicized when it's like Kyle, then they shouldn't be politicized for Alec. However, this is, at least some sort of negligence, right? He's going to be sued into oblivion. That's a fact. Investigators revealed developments as they sought permission to search the prop company and an Albuquerque strip mall that provided the Western with props. As of right now, no charges have been brought, but they haven't yet ruled them out. Baldwin's claims are in direct contrast with what Mamie Mitchell, the film script supervisor, stated in a suit last month. She said the actor intentionally pulled the hammer back and pulled the trigger. Now, that obviously seems a lot more reasonable, given that's how these things actually work. It's like, I don't know what it is about these far lefties, but they blame first it's the SUV that did it. And now Alex out here actually saying, well, it wasn't me, it was the prop. It had some sort of vendetta against me. That prop was probably a Trump supporter. Alec's full interview will air at 8 p.m. Thursday. I don't think I'll be staying up to watch that. His wife, Hilaria, I don't care, on social media that says she's had difficulty talking to the couple's children about it. Well, you don't need to talk about your kids, talk to your kids about it at all. It's been kind of funny that how they've made this all about them. Does anybody even remember the name of the woman besides, us, me, who's covering it, you, the viewer? Rust assistant director says he didn't pull, and it was a misfire. That's not how a single action revolver works. Again, they expect you to be dumb. They expect you to not be able to understand the basics of this. The basics of the single action is there is no misfire. There is an intentional act of pulling back the hammer. There's an intentional act of either, activating that hammer some way or another. If the story had been that it fell on the floor and discharged, then you could call that a misfire. But not, he still had to pull the hammer back intentionally and release it. I don't know why these people this entire time. So you see, attorneys for Lisa Torrico told the AD said the same thing. The entire time, AB had his finger outside the trigger guard, parallel to the barrel. Hall told me since day one he thought it was a misfire, but that's not the definition of a misfire. Do they think we're stupid? I don't really understand. Obviously, the worst part about this is, that someone lost their life. It's great and all to dunk on, psychopath Alec, but that's not going to bring her back. And, ultimately that it still sucks. Obviously, there's a huge lapse in any kind of safety around it. You can't just come out here and tell people that the trigger wasn't pulled. That's just not how these things work. And so he runs on to this far lefty news show. If they had any kind of expert if even George Snuffleupagus had done 30 seconds worth of research about the prop, he would have simply said, wait a minute, how did okay, you didn't pull the trigger, but did you pull the hammer back? These are intentional acts that they're just going to give him a pass on. And I would argue that, he certainly needs some sort of charges, of the reckless variety, as opposed to, anything intentional. I fully believe it was an accident, a tragic one. But it's one that could have been prevented. And that's perhaps the worst part about it. You have multiple failure points, whether it's this rookie armorer who's clearly not good at her job and hasn't been good at her job after, we looked at history where there's another misfire on set with Nicolas Cage. There's the person that handed it to him and pronounced that it was cold without actually checking it. Then there's Alec, who could have checked it and didn't. Now he's coming out here with this absurd lie that, I never pulled the trigger. it must have been a spooky ghost that did this. I mean, if you believe this, by the way, these are the people that are the ones pushing for the strongest restrictions on our ability to defend ourselves too. So just think about that. He wants you to believe he didn't pull the trigger. That's obviously highly unlikely. But this is what the media is going to push. He's going to shed some crocodile tears, and he's going to pretend like that evil prop just is out to get him. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.